Good morning, students. Today we'll start with the white blood cells. Page 94. These white blood cells are even called leukocytes, and they differ from the red blood cells in having nucleus and not containing hemoglobin. The red blood cells did not have nucleus, but white blood cells have. The red blood cells had hemoglobin, but the white blood cells do not have hemoglobin. And their number is much less, usually about 4,000 to 8,000 per cubic millimeter of blood. And red blood cells were about 5 million per cubic millimeter of blood. And most of the WBCs are amoeboid. Amoeboid means they are amoeba-like, and they can produce pseudopodia, that is false foot, with which they can squeeze through the walls of the capillaries into the tissues. So the white blood cells with the help of the pseudopodia can make their way out through the walls of the capillaries, and this is called diapedesis. So the process of squeezing out of the white blood cells through the walls of the capillaries is known as diapedesis. And based on the shape and other characteristics, white blood cells are classified into two major categories. And one is that the cytoplasm contains of the white blood cells contain granule, then they are called the granulocytes. And the other type, in this, the cytoplasm do not contain granules and have a single large nucleus. They are called agranulocytes. And these granulocytes, they are of three types: neutrophils, eosinophils, basophils. Neutrophils, they are about 62% of the white blood cells, and the nucleus of the neutrophils has 3 to 4 lobes. These are lobes of the nucleus. They have 3 to 4 lobes, and the cytoplasm is granular and stains with the neutral dyes, and the cytoplasm get stained with the neutral dyes, and the function of these neutrophils is to engulf bacteria. They engulf bacteria, and this process is known as phagocytosis. And these type of white blood cells, that is neutrophils, they are produced in the bone marrow. And the second type of granulocytes is eosinophils. They are about 2 to 3%. And their count or their number increases in case of allergies. And they have nucleus with 2 lobes. Large cytoplasmic granules are there and stain dark red with eosin. Eosin is an acidic dye, and their color changes to dark red when this dye is added to them. And function of the eosinophils is to engulf bacteria. They even secrete antitoxins, and they are associated with allergy. And eosinophils are also produced in the bone marrow. And the third type of granulocytes are the basophils. And the basophils have large nucleus and indistinctly lobed it is. The lobes are not distinct in case of basophils. You can't make out the lobes. And granules are there, and they are stained with basic dyes like methylene blue. So when basic dye is added, they are stained by them. And function of the basophils is they release chemical called histamine for inflammation, which dilates the blood vessels. we will do about inflammation in this lesson. And the basophils, they release the chemical called histamine. And the function of histamine is to dilate the blood vessels. Dilate means broaden. And the basophils are also produced in the bone marrow. Then the second type of the white blood cells, that is agranulocytes, they are of two types, lymphocytes and monocytes. Lymphocytes are about 30% of the white blood cells, and they are smallest of the WBCs. So sometimes you can be asked in one word, name a white blood cell which is smallest in size, and that is lymphocyte. And they have single large nucleus. So here nucleus is not lobed, so one single large nucleus is there. And function of the lymphocytes is to produce antibodies. And they are produced in the bone marrow and lymph glands like spleen and tonsils. And the second type of a granulocyte is monocytes. They are 5.3%, and the largest of the WBCs. They are the largest WBCs. Nucleus is large, kidney shaped, and at the site of infection transform into macrophages. So where infection is there, they get transformed into the macrophages, larger cells. And they ingest, function is that they ingest the germs, and they are also produced in the bone marrow. So this is about the various types of the white blood cells. Now, what is the origin and life of the white blood cells? The white blood cells, they are produced in the red bone marrow, lymph nodes, and sometimes even in liver and spleen. And their lifespan is about 2 weeks. And the neutrophils live for only a few hours. And about 125 billion neutrophils are produced each day. So actually the lifespan of WBCs varies. It varies from few hours to 2 weeks. Because sometime of these neutrophils, they live only for few hours. There are other types of white blood cells which live for 2 weeks. So the lifespan of the white blood cells varies from few hours to 2 weeks. And the old and the worn out WBCs, they are destroyed in the same manner as RBCs. And leukemia is a cancer of tissues forming WBCs whose number increases manifold at the cost of WBCs. So WBCs, they are destroyed, and the white blood cells, their number is increased, and it is a type of cancer, and currently treatment is only blood transfusion. And the second type of abnormality is the abnormal decrease in the number of WBCs, and it is called leukopenia. So these are the two abnormalities of blood. Next is the function of leukocytes. One main function of leukocytes is to defend the body against diseases, and it is done by phagocytosis. In this process, most of the WBCs, and particularly the neutrophils, they engulf the particles like solid substances, especially bacteria. And this is a defensive mechanism against disease germs. And an abnormal increase in WBCs count up to 50,000 or more per cubic millimeter of the blood indicates that there is some infection in the body. Next is inflammation. And Inflammation occurs due to the reaction of the tissues to injury or to localized invasion of germs. So when some injury is there and to localize the infection means stop the spreading of infection to the other parts of the body, inflammation occurs. And the inflamed spot has several characteristics. One is local heat, that portion is warmer than the other parts of our body. Redness is there, swelling and pain. And here in this case, when inflammation occurs, the leukocytes, especially the monocytes and the neutrophils, they squeeze out from the walls of the blood capillaries, and which is called diapedicus, and they fight against the disease causing germs, and they also destroy and damage cells by phagocytosis and results in the formation of pus. You all must have seen sometimes when infection takes place, pus develops. Then what is pus? It is mainly composed of the dead white blood cells and the dead tissue cells which have been destroyed by the bacteria. Next is formation of antibodies. These WBCs and especially the lymphocytes, they produce antibodies which kill or neutralize the germs or the poisons from them. So the function of WBCs is to produce antibodies, and antibodies, they are the ones which neutralize the germs or the poisonous effects of the germs. Introducing weakened germs or germ substances, that is the vaccine during vaccination, stimulates the formation of antibodies, which at the later period would destroy the particular disease causing germs if they enter into the body. So the principle of vaccination is this only, that we inject the antibodies, and these antibodies, they are the ones which destroy the germs later when they enter into the body. So this much for today.